Fans in Jacksonville got the full court press on Taylor. What am I talking about? I'll tell you in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All for joining me here today on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder that we're free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, hit that like button, and then please make sure that you hit the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we drop an episode. Also, if you ride around in your car sitting at your desk while you're supposed to be at work, but you're listening to me, wherever you're doing that at, make sure you tap back in to make sure you don't miss an episode. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us here every single day, and you can be one too. All you got to do is just join us every single day. All right, we're still talking about Press Taylor. We're going to get into it a little bit. This might satisfy those that think that I'm looking the other way too much, which I'm not. But if you are thinking that, then this might satisfy you, or it might give you a little bit of an on-ramp to understanding exactly what I'm dealing with and what I'm going through when I think about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's what the show's going to be about. Fans putting the full court press on Taylor, why a change can be good or bad if Doug Pederson decides to take the reins back. We'll hit that in segment 2. Then in segment 3, you got to do something. What is it necessarily? Is it making a change, or is it something else? And I'll give you that in segment 3. I ain't going to give it to you too much here early because it might cloud your vision a little bit. All right, here's the deal. If you haven't been in Jacksonville or paying attention to the Jaguars the last few weeks, mainly it didn't really hit home until they actually lost and got mollywopped. Press Taylor, the offense is not doing well this year. That's the one side of the ball that all the fans figured that it wouldn't be a problem. Folks were more worried about the defense than they were their offense. And now it's the other way around. And the defense has been the saving grace for the entire season. That statement right there alone shows you exactly why I feel the way I feel. You were more worried about the defense because you saw what you saw last year. Nothing changed, and now they're better, right? So fans see that you weren't worried about the offense. In the fans' eyes, something changed, right? And they're worse. Does it mean that the reason that they changed who the primary play caller is every day, and they announced it, does it mean that and that alone, or does it mean that is the thing that's most responsible for the Jaguars not playing well? That's the biggest key. Fans are going to say, yeah. I'm not trying to defend myself, but the day that was announced, I came on here and said, why the hell did they say that? Why? Because I knew that last year was a shared duty. I knew that Press Taylor had been with Doug Pederson for a long, long time. And I knew that at some points last year, Press was calling the plays. And there were times that he was calling those plays that they were very, very successful. In fact, last year, you would understand why Doug Pederson would do that, because Mike Caldwell was a first-time defensive coordinator, and they were trying to make a run, and you would think that Doug would lean more to the guy that he didn't know as well, even though I think he worked with Caldwell at one point in Philly, but he'd lean on that side of the ball a little bit more. or just be in this overseer mode, because not every coach calls plays. Tom Coughlin didn't call plays. It was Chris Palmer a lot of times, or Kevin Gilbride. He wasn't no offensive coordinator, right? Jimmy Johnson didn't call plays. Some of the best coaches you've ever seen, Bill Belichick didn't call plays. He tried to last year. It was an absolute disaster. So who called plays on offense for a lot of these teams that win? That's the thing. See, the new hot shot deal is, I guess the hottest play caller guy out there right now is Kyle Shanahan. He never won nothing. Matter of fact, he called plays and lost the 28-3 lead at halftime of a game, right? You look at Cincinnati, you look at Zach Taylor. Prior to Zach Taylor getting his job, he was, I believe, in Tennessee, and they were either 31st or 32nd in offense. But somebody still saw fit to give him a job, and he almost got fired, and then he got a quarterback and a bunch of wide receivers, and now he's considered one of the best offensive minds in football, right? I just recall fans around here wanting Joe Brady. Joe Brady went to Carolina. It was a natural disaster as a play caller. We got to get beyond whether this is something that you want when, I don't want to say this way, but I am, because that's who I am. And it includes me. I'm not being an elitist here because I have a press credential. I won't even go over there during the week because it interferes with my schedule. Right? I do when I can, but for the most part, since this season, for the things that I've been having going on in my personal life, I ain't going over there, right? So I'm not an elitist. I'm with you all. Here's the thing. We can't possibly know enough about what actually goes on in the inner workings for us to be trying to influence decisions, but fans do it. So here we are. Players read and hear a lot. These young cats on social media, they read and hear a lot. And as much as you hear players talk about, we're going to keep it in the locker room. Keep it in the locker room. We ain't paying attention to outside noise. That is a lie. That is a lie. I did get hear from good report, though, that them dudes ain't tripping on that. See, here's why, before I get to segment 2, where I say why a change can be good or bad. You can spark this team. This is a segue to you can spark this team if you're Doug Pederson by doing that, because it means that you're putting everybody on notice that if you clip your boy, you'll do anybody. So usually what people do is the eyes get big and they start tightening up a little bit, like, man, let's get it together, right? That's the good part of it. The bad part of it is, if you're Doug Pederson, you got to make a mistake and you possibly end up torpedoing the career of a friend of yours. And you might not believe that it needs to happen, but you're doing it just because of all the optics that's going on. So that would mean that that's a bad thing, right? It could get even worse. What if Doug took the play calling back and the same stuff keeps happening? Which is why I keep telling folks to look bigger. We are going to discuss all of that stuff, all of that, in segment 2. And we're going to get into it, man. I ain't going to sugarcoat anything. I'm just going to say, okay, I heard y'all. Y'all want to get rid of press. I get it. Y'all want press to be gone, folks. They want. Why could somebody said, instead of Zay Jones, why couldn't Press Taylor get arrested? All of this stuff. And I know that people are being facetious, and I know the reason why I understand is because I know more than anything fans want to win. So we're going to talk about that in segment 2 here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, first we got to talk about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Man, LinkedIn is the real deal. I put together 2 straight barbershops by using LinkedIn. That's right. Because you want to make sure you're interviewing the right people, getting the right people to come sit in your space so you can understand exactly who they are and what they are. All you got to do is add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl, all one word, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions They apply. All right, now I want to talk to you about our other sponsor, which is FanDuel, man. Y'all know how I feel about FanDuel. FanDuel is the absolute truth. I love playing FanDuel, and I love reading the information in the sports book because it gives me an idea of exactly what I should be looking forward to, because FanDuel is always spot on, man. You can't get better than that. And they are doing this for new customers. You get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in the action. So stop thinking about it and just do it. The app is easy to use. You can look at spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. I'll say it again, FanDuel.com/locked-on, all one word, and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. And I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, trying to bring you this goodness. Some bad weather for the next couple of days here in Jacksonville. And not only that, bad feelings and bad karma. The way this team played, has been playing offensively all year. They finally bit them in the butt, and they got smoked 34-3 by the 49ers. And boy, did the Wolves and the Vultures and the people that have been my friend all year, they came out and they got all over me about Press Taylor. My point is that what if Doug takes the reins and it's something bigger? We be speculating about the play calling. All we can say is it's not the same. And the one thing that changed is that's what they did. So coaches warn you all the time that there isn't this year-for-year carryover. It's just not. There is no carryover that's year from year. The things that you did last year are not the things necessarily that you're going to do or have done this year. Folks talk about it all the time in the NFL. You're not going to win one game this year based on anything that you did last year. You have to reset it and start it over. So examine it. There's a chance that these things could be going on if they did not announce. And there's a difference between them announcing that Press Taylor is the full-time play caller, or whether or not he was actually co-play caller last year, which he was, and that's what people can't get through because nobody told you that last year. So you didn't know it last year. You didn't know when he was calling plays. You didn't know. Like, why would Doug give up play call? Doug said the second half of last year he gave a play call on a lot in the second half to Press Taylor. And that's when the Jaguars went on their run and they only lost one game down the stretch. Maybe they were losing and he said, you know what, I need to pay attention to the whole team. So I need you to help me actually call plays on Sunday. And then they started winning and it started working. So maybe what Doug did, he came into this year and he said, we're going to continue what was already working. But fans don't see it that way. They figure like it was just a total change. And without actually knowing, and you're not going to ever know because they're not going to probably tell you and break it down like that because it is not a part of what they're supposed to do in their job and lay out all of this stuff for everybody to be all up in their business like that. And you should be happy about that. So it leads to everybody just speculating, right? So here's what the only thing I ask everybody to do. I want you to just talk about what you see. Can your offensive line block? Are they knocking people off the ball? Can they protect Trevor? Do they have drops? Does Trevor make bad throws? Yes, all of it. So all I'm going to focus on is what I see the problem is, instead of speculating on what I think it might be. That's all I've been telling people to do. That is it. That is it. That is absolutely it. Is Travis Etienne better than he was last year? Yeah, you can see that, right? Everybody wanted Jermichael Hasty to be the backup. Is he better than Dearness Johnson? Hell no. You see that too, right? Sure. Is the defense better than it was last year and they didn't make any changes? Yeah. And that's for all the people that think you got to be playing games to get better. No, they got better in the offseason because they picked up where they left off at the end of last year when they were down and they had to make sure nobody scored so the offense could score some points and the team could actually catch up. Once you're down by 10, 12 points, you can't match touchdowns. You have to actually stop people. And that's what they did down the stretch. Did they tell you that they were going to try to work on turnovers and all of a sudden they come out and they were leading the league in turnovers gotten or created? Yeah. They didn't do that while they were out there on the football field playing, right? maybe they didn't change as much as you think they did. Maybe they just told you about it. And once they did that, that was an issue. So now you have to ask yourself, do the players get affected by the fact that it was announced that he was going to be the number one play caller? Perhaps, but I would then put the onus on the players who make millions of dollars to not be immature and do their damn job and not be out here doing things that they ain't got no business doing, dropping passes and fumbling balls and holding people and not being able to block people, all of that stuff. I'll tell you one thing that changed this year. They would usually leave Juwan Taylor. Now, most people are going to look at this like this. They're going to say, well, he ain't playing that well in Kansas City. I ain't talking about Kansas City. I'm talking about what he was doing here. A lot of people that leave and worry about Shaq Griffin is playing better in Houston than he did here. So I know y'all don't want him back, right? Okay, good. So my thing is sometimes what players do is Juwan Taylor was a real good fit for this team and what they were going to do. Now, you would think that it's apples to apples because he went to the same system, but it doesn't mean he's going to play just as well. Okay? Contract year and all of that, everything has an effect. So some things do affect things mentally. So if Doug made a change right now, how could it be good? Well, maybe it lets everybody know that if he'll do that to him, he'll do it to us too. We better get it. Now there's nowhere to run. Now he's calling the plays. So when we make mistakes, fans are going to know, oh, it wasn't really him. It was just us. It was the players, right? So now you got to get your stuff going. How could it go bad? Well, it could go bad because now you publicly second-guessed yourself. Torpedo a guy's career in a sense. What if they don't play better and he makes the switch? What you going to point to now? What are we going to look at now? What are we going to do now? Y'all going to apologize to press the way you apologize to Trent Baalke for calling him a clown, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of players that he picked, and then they made the playoffs, and then now they're the favorites to win the AFC South, and everybody was like, we sorry. That's what you're going to do? There's just this ebb and flow of emotions that come along with winning and losing that makes everybody so emotional, and I get it. I want that emotion. I want it. But I want to make sure that we nip the right problem in the bud, and we don't sit here and dump the wrong cargo. You know, you look out that window when you're flying, if your plane is going down and you look over, all you see water, and you're holding on to too much, so you start dumping all of the dry land stuff, right? And then you get to dry land because you dumped all that cargo. Now the plane can make it to dry land. Now you get to dry land and you got a plane full of water gear and you don't need it. And all the dry land stuff you have is in the ocean. Make sure you don't dump the wrong cargo. We have learned around here. They fired this guy and fired that guy. We're like, okay, we got it now. No, they probably should have fired everybody. Oh, it was all Jalen Ramsey's fault. Right. How did that work out? I just want to know. This is not about making emotional decisions. It's about doing what's best for the football team. I don't know one person in here that is willing to walk up to Doug Pederson's face and go, you are ruining the Jaguars' chances of winning a Super Bowl because you're helping your buddy out. If that's the way you feel, just say it. And if you feel that way and that's what you're doing, guess who is wrong? Press ain't wrong, it's Doug. And that's what I keep trying to tell y'all. If you think that's what he's doing, then why aren't you angry at him for doing that? Well, y'all going to be mad at the dude because he won't fire himself. Doug Pederson itemizes things that go wrong. Things that he believes probably would have gone wrong had he called plays. It got nothing to do with a play call. Put the onus where it goes. Jaguars aren't scoring in the red zone. They weren't scoring in the red zone last year in their first 9 games, and folks were telling Doug he needs to run the ball, and Doug said, no, I'm going to keep putting that pressure on Trevor. I stood right there and heard him say it. The guy started executing, and it started working. Was anybody trying to say through 9 games that Doug Pederson was not a good play caller? How about this? This stuff happened in Philadelphia, and I know what you're going to say. Yeah, he had Press Taylor, and that's why they fired him. Yeah, well, you know, even if that's true, this is a different situation. I don't think Doug Pederson would sacrifice the Jaguars' chances over Super Bowl by trying to get his friend a job. They denied anybody. People tried to call Press Taylor last year and interview him, and Doug denied it. Didn't want him to interview him. If he wanted to, somehow sabotage that guy from leaving, he would have never announced him as a play caller. They got to do something. What is the thing that I want to tell y'all that they got to do? Guess what? I won't tell you because I'm in the business of telling y'all exactly how I feel. We'll do that in just a second. Here in the third segment on Locked On Jaguars. All right, I'm going to let you know about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best, biggest, baddest, independently owned, independent daily fantasy sports in the country. And I know that because I play it all the time. I love PrizePicks, man. I don't want to be some Skrilla by picking my parlays. Here's my advice to you. You can pick between 2 and 6 items. You have to go more or less than the projections, and you win. You don't even have to hit all of them, but you win more money when you hit all of them once you play between 4 and 6. I like to go for those little 3 and 4 teamers, man. Get that for sure money with less and then build it up and then take my chances on a 5 or 6 parlay. You can do the same thing when you go to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app and make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, in lowercase for a first deposit match up to $100. I'll read it again. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LOCKEDONNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm telling you, man, PrizePicks is the absolute truth. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. And we are here in the third and final segment of today's Locked On Jaguars show. And one of the things I want to tell you about is the new Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Tanitra Baptiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs, my man Krabs, will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get in-depth local analysis from your stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on Locked On NFL YouTube channel. And there you have it. They got to do something, man. The Jaguars got to do something. All right. It's easy for me to sit here. If I want to sit here on my, what do they call it? My soapbox. I can say they just got to play better. Well, they do. They have to play better, right? But what could Doug Pederson do to make them play better? Is it as easy as taking the play calling over? Sure, it could give a spark to a team and maybe even hide some of the warts that they have. They're going to win a couple of games here. The games that they have scheduled against teams, they're going to win their share, right? The Jaguars are 6-3. They got 8 games left. I know they're going to win at least 4 of them. In my opinion, they win at least 4. They go 4-4. I think they'll do better than that and maybe go 5-3 or 6-2 and get to 12 wins if that's the case, right? And they'll win the AFC South in doing that. I'm going to make them favorite in the next 2 weeks. But what they have to do, one, they have to play better. Regardless of who's calling plays, you got to execute what's called, even if you don't agree with it. You remember when there was talk about Jalen Ramsey doing his own thing and folks called him selfish? Well, one of the things he was accused of doing was he was disagreeing with the defense they ran. He wanted to be more aggressive, right? And I came on here and I said that even if he's right about them being wrong about what they were calling, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him because those guys got fired and Jalen left and won a Super Bowl. Even if he was right, 2 wrongs don't make a right. You're definitely going to be wrong if you don't go out there and do what they ask you to do, because now you're not on the same page with the other 10 players. I asked Trayvon Walker, will you ever break the scheme so you can go and get more sacks? He said, I'll never ignore the scheme because I want my job. That's the person that gets it, and that's the guy that understands it. So if guys are going out there and they're making the mistakes that y'all see them making when they lose, and it's all about, if you think that they're doing it because they're not motivated because they know that it's a bad call, then they're just as wrong as Jalen was if he was doing that, and they're just as wrong as Trayvon would have been had he not answered that question correctly. So what I see is a team that makes mistakes. What I see is a team that makes a dumb. See, I don't want you to give me any reason to believe that it's not Press's fault. Do what you're told. Execute. Block. Don't let a guy run past you and get Trevor. Trevor, don't throw the ball to a dude named Tank from 4 feet away. Throw it 100 miles per hour like you're Randy Johnson or somebody, and it goes off of his hands, especially when you know he's a turnover waiting to happen. Just don't do it. Don't do it. If everybody does their job, then we won't have a problem identifying where the problem is and who the problem is, right? But Doug Pederson itemized all of the mistakes that were made, and none of them were made by Press Taylor. Now, mentally or psychologically, are these guys ready to play every week? Doug said, hey, man, they were ready to go. We were fired up and all that. And see, all of that emotion, and I'm telling you, emotion has its place, just like I'm telling you on this podcast. It has its place. But sometimes you just can't want to your way to a win. You have to actually execute. And here's the thing, ding, ding, you have to actually be good enough to do exactly what it is you're trying to do. The hard thing for us to even imagine that might be true is maybe they're just not good enough. Because what that does is that takes all of our optimism, that takes everything that we have been looking for and says we've been wasting our time, they ain't ready yet. And that's a hard thing for a fan to realize. But in 3 games, they got pushed and bullied. So to me, they got a getting pushed and getting bullied problem. Because they've been winning games playing poorly on offense, but they won them, right? But when they ran into teams that could push and bully them, they got pushed and bullied. Even when things aren't going well, you can always go just run the ball. Kind of like boxing. Hey, man, it ain't really my night, man. My footwork is a little bit off. I'm a little bit sluggish. All right, don't worry about no footwork. Just get close enough to him and pound him to death. Beat his body, beat him. And sometimes you can get hit and it knocks you into a rhythm, right? Well, that's what I thought was going to happen to the Jaguars, and it didn't. It got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. All I'm telling you is y'all might be right. It might be Press Taylor. It might be Doug needing to take the reins back from Press Taylor. That would make both of us right, because it's Doug's fault that this all happened in the first place by announcing it or by doing it. So with that being said, I want them to leave no desire or no inclination or no guesswork into us trying to figure out exactly what's wrong and who's wrong. Everybody do their job. If you do your job, you can, and you still don't win, and we can point to about 4 or 5 plays where they just made some stupid, and those things alone caused the game, and then we'll go, all right, it's him. He's got to go. But until you identify what the problem is, you just don't know. You don't know. Doug's trying to figure it out. And the reason why, I think the reason why he's still dumbfounded and trying to figure it out is this. Either y'all believe he knows what it is, but he don't want to admit that he was wrong, or that he's blinded by bias because Press is like his son. That's one thing of doing it. And even if it's that way, it's still on him. We're going to argue about that all week, but I ain't going to worry about that part of it. But here, what if it's this? What if every time he made a play call that followed the game plan that they put together, what if every time he makes a call, Doug thinks to himself, that's exactly what I would do? And then it doesn't work because somebody does something silly. Y'all telling that man that's been involved in football as a player and a coach for 40 years, that he doesn't know what the hell he's thinking and talking about? Nah, you know what? I can sleep in whatever hotel I want. I can read whatever book I want, but I am not ever going to be that arrogant that I'm going to say that to a man that played in the league, that has coached in Super Bowls, that has won a Super Bowl, that I know more than he does. And if he knows it's something else, he ain't going to tell you, and he shouldn't. And if he does, he doesn't need to be the coach here. The bottom line is they do a lot of things that we don't want them to do. You want them to get a pass rusher, and they didn't bother doing it in the draft or free agency. We can disagree all day, but when it doesn't work, we can point to it and say, see, I told you. Here's what he can do. Leaving all the guesswork out of it, he can just come out and flat out say, this ain't on Press. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. Or he can just make a switch. But right now, leaving it the way it is, if it doesn't improve, it's not going to go good for the Jaguars. It'll go good for me if you join me every single day here on Locked On Jaguars. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast.